Now guys, as you have understood now India database, in this section what we are going to understand is the global and overseas database also. See, particularly when you are doing TNMM analysis wherein your tested party is India, you should, I would advise that you should use Indian databases rather than getting into the global databases. But yes, when you are undertaking a TNMM analysis or financial or royalty transaction analysis for overseas entities wherein your tested party is an overseas entity, or you are checking or you're benchmarking the transaction from overseas entities perspective, then you should go ahead with the global databases. Also for financial and royalty transactions where your tested party is in India, or where you are testing that transaction from the Indian perspective, then also you can go ahead with the global databases. As I said that in India, very less database is available for financial benchmarking the financial transaction. Also for benchmarking a royalty transaction, there are no Indian companies don't have such database. So there are no Indian databases available for royalty transactions. So you have to rely on the global database for such particular transactions, and wherein you are required to select also just geography as India. I am also placing some old files from where I have used the global databases. So the screenshots of that from that file from that database, and the data output which we have got from that particular database. So I'll be placing that also below this video. But before that, we are discussing this global databases. Now, as you can see here, so for TNMM and RPM purposes, there are certain databases which are very known, like Bureau van Dijk, that is what we call BBD Orbis database. So that's a very old, and it has more number of companies for entire, so under entire globe, whatever the countries are. I mean, maximum number of countries and maximum number of companies this BBD Orbis database has. Now there are also other databases from BBD itself, that is BBD Amadeus, that is for Europe region. So if your tested party is based out of Europe region, then you can use this database and you can avail services from this database service providers, and you can get your comparable data set and you can do the TNMM analysis. Then there is BBD Oriana, that is for Asia Pacific region. Then there is this Compass, Edgar Stat, Thomson Reuters, that is, it is available for a worldwide, so worldwide, it doesn't mean that it covers each and every country, but you can find companies from Australia, UK, US or European countries. You can find that comparable companies which are there comparable, which can be compared to your tested parties operation, which is again based out of in any overseas jurisdictions other than India. Then Dun and Bradstreet has also the database which is called as Company 360 Mergent $1 million directory. That is for Australia and US entity. So if you are benchmarking a transaction from US perspective, or where tested parties in US or Australia, you can use that database as well. Then there is Interfax Spark, which is spatial database for Russia, Ukraine and Kazakhstan. So that database particularly covers the financial data of this particular region only, that is Russia, Ukraine and Kazakhstan. And then there is KIS line, that is for South Korea. So these are types of database which are available. So once when a case comes up to you, you can check with this particular service providers. You can put your proposal or request with this entities only, and then they can revert you with appropriate codes. Now it may also happen that this entities may not give license for single search. You would be required to buy some 15, 20 or more than that particular amount of searches for using this database. You need to have license. So in that scenario, what you can do is, guys, that this is just a tip or trick which I always do if I want to benchmark transaction from the overseas where the tested party is overseas or from overseas perspective. Then what I will do is I will reach out to the consultant, transfer pricing consultants who are there particular in that particular country, and then I will give them the engagement of benchmarking. And once when we agree on quotes, right? So wherever there are transfer pricing consultants in a particular country for which you are required to undertake the benchmarking analysis, then you have to reach out that particular consultant, correct? And then you take the code from that particular consultant, and then after you can add your margins to that code, and then after you can give a final quote to your particular client. You can very well add a margin of 20 to 25 or 30% on the codes given from received from that particular consultant. So that's a trick. right? You don't need to use the database or you don't have to exactly access that database. You can, give that, outsource that entire particular benchmarking services. Then probably you can do your analysis afterwards apart from benchmarking, but yes, you can do this type as well. So it is easy. You just need to find a right TP consultant who can give you right quotes. So for that also you can select 2-3 TP consultants or 3-4 TP consultants who can provide you that services, and then you can compare the quotes also. You can tell them what exactly how you need to run the benchmarking analysis, and then appropriately you can get the quotes from that consultants, and appropriately your work will not get stopped. It's only the timing of that days, so they would require a certain amount of time that you need to factor before you give the final timeline to the client. I hope this clarifies. Now, for TNMM RPM purposes, we saw the global databases. Now, for financial transactions, there are many databases as well for TNMM, financial transaction, royalty transaction. But I have just mentioned here the commonly used databases, which are, for financial transactions, you'll be using. You can use the Bloomberg database, which has, which captures. Most of times this database are also being used by income tax department also to capture the loan transactions. So they have worldwide database of loan transactions. It's not each and every loan transaction is available under Bloomberg, but yes, they have tried to capture many transactions happening between many countries. So you can use a database to undertake a benchmarking analysis for financial transactions, including the financial transactions taken in India also. So you can use that database. You can select that region. I'll be going to share that particular file below this video, wherein you can find the screenshot of this database and how the output is. You get the output from this database when you perform a loan search analysis, right? Loan transaction analysis. So it's available there. So then after, there's a Moody's Analytics, that is a Risk Calc Plus database, that is for credit score analysis. So once when you benchmark financial transactions, you are also required to undertake a credit score analysis. At times people do undertake that analysis as well. It is recommended, but now you have to follow OECD's BEPS financial transaction guidance as well. We'll take up that part once when we discuss that special transactions under day 8. But right now, just for your information, I have written here the databases which can be helpful to you for undertaking the benchmarking analysis for a financial transaction. Then after, the third database is Thomson Reuters Deal Scan or Loan Connector. So this is also good database. I have attached the screen. I have also shared that file below this video, so that you can understand that how that database looks like, and then after so how the query is being built on that database, and then after how the transaction output you get, right? So that is for financial transactions. Then after royalty transaction. So for royalty transaction, the commonly used database are royalty range. That is, in case if your transaction pertains to Europe region, then you can use the royalty range, and you can also narrow down this particular. This databases also have a facility to narrow down the region as well. So they capture the data of particular Europe region, but in case if you require data for Austria or Germany or England or France, so such type of data can be captured particularly when you narrow down the search analysis. Then royalty stat is also there, which is also commonly being used for global markets as also US. KTMI IP, so this predominantly used in US. Royalty source, again global and US, and Thomson Reuters, again worldwide intangibles data. So these are all databases, global databases, when you are required to benchmark a royalty transaction. You can go ahead with this any of the service provider directly, or you can, again as I said, that you can involve a consultant who is based out of that particular region or in that country, and then you can avail its services, right? And then you can appropriately add margin. That's an easy way to get the work done, right? Then for mergers and acquisitions also, there's a database BVD Zypher. I haven't used this database. I haven't also worked more upon merger acquisition transaction, but this is the database which is available in case if you are required to benchmark a share transfer transaction or a merger or acquisitions or disinvestment transaction. So it would contain relevant data on betas, on security premiums or whatever the other economic factors that you are required to understand and consider when you are benchmarking a share purchase or merger transaction. Then at that point of time, you may be required to use this database. So it would contain that particular part. And then for hedge funds also, there's this database called Hedge Fund Research. For USA, this is predominantly a database available with USA, wherein there are more USA hedge funds, and they are undertaking some, your tested party is a USA based hedge fund, then you can use this database, that is hedge funds research. This doesn't come usually in practice, in local practice, but yes, you can, in case if that comes, I have just given you for information, you can go ahead and you can again work on that database. Now after this, what I'm going to discuss is how to select the database. Now fundamentally, when you are aware about all such databases, but now the question comes that how should you select the appropriate database? Then what you should do is, first you need to understand that where your tested party is located, that you would be knowing, right, in which geography or region for which data needs to be extracted. So if your tested party is in India and you are applying a TNM method, then go ahead with the Indian database, don't go ahead with the global database. But if your tested party is based out of US and you are benchmarking a transaction which has happened between the US and Canadian entity or US and European entity, then you can use these global databases, whichever is applicable in your case, and then you can go ahead and use that database, right? Then the second consideration for selection of database could be, right, now there could be, you would require more number of comparables, right? At that point of time also you should try going with the database which has more number of company data compared to the other database which have less amount of data. So you can, that is also one of the relevant factor when you select the database. And the third and the most obvious factor, client's budget, right? Now if clients, the budget of the client budget is not so much, then you need to select the database which is more affordable to the client, also in the pockets of the client as well, right? So you need to consider that part also when you select the database. But yes, if it is necessary to go with the global database, even if client doesn't have budget, you should always speak to the client, say that this is not an easy task. This is because every TP consultant, if the client goes with any of the TP consultant where global database is, needs to be used, then there is no option with the client and to benchmark that particular thing with an Indian database, or to compromise with the benchmarking process. So I would suggest don't compromise with the benchmarking process or the fees part, right? You need to work, because as being a TP consultant, you need to understand that this is entire subjective matter which can be litigated in any forum, and which can, in case if you don't have a strong justification to use that particular thing, or you don't have that strong justification for your positions, it is not advisable. All right, so if you are required to tell to the client that this will be your charges, correct, because see, for getting the request for proposal and quotes there are no charges, right? But for performing that services there are charges, right? So you have to explain this to your client clearly, that this involves benchmarking of this particular thing, for which you may need to access a global database, or probably in India also you may need to access one or more database, right? So you need to tell your efforts which will be put in for this particular thing, and plus the database cost as well, and then appropriately you need to factor that in your client's budget, and you have to tell that to the client that this will be the cost. And in 90% cases it will be similar, only the other TP consultants would also give the similar cost to the client, because obviously in case if they are compromising with the quality, then the cost may differ, but nobody would do that under transfer pricing consultancy. I hope this clarifies. Now in the next video we are going to start a live search process on the database. I'll catch you in the next video where you'll be seeing the live database, that is Capital Line database, and there we are going to do the quantitative filtering, and we are assuming also one case for that, right? I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you, and hope you are enjoying this learning sessions. I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you.